Some of the common mistakes I see missionaries make and how they can be avoided is first mistake I see them make is in this notion of calling. They tend to think that because they went to a conference, they heard the Great Commission preached, and their hearts were warmed, that they ought to go. Now I'm called because I have sort of a burning in my bosom, and I want to tell them that mistake needs to be corrected by going to your elders, going to the godly older people in your church and saying, do you see me as someone that you would want to support and send to the mission field? I think starting there, that's the first common mistake I see among missionaries. Secondly, I see a mistake among missionaries that I don't really want to pin on the missionaries all the time. Often I want to pin on the local church. They get very little training and feedback as to their qualifications from the local church. Sometimes that's because they don't seek it, but sometimes that's because the local church just doesn't have any interest in giving it. They don't want to put in the kind of time necessary to really vet these people and train them and make sure they're qualified, and really don't want to have hard conversations. And that can go both ways. You can have a missionary who doesn't want to hear the hard things so that they can develop, and you have churches who don't want to say the hard things so they can develop. So it's another mistake I see. Next, I see the mistake of the fact they don't get thorough training in language and culture. So they go out really unequipped. They haven't been taught a biblical doctrine of suffering and endurance so that they can survive long term. And so they go out unequipped. It's one of the reasons we started Radius International, so that we can vet people and train them in language and culture and cross-cultural church planning and suffering so that they're ready to go to the field equipped to do this task. Next, I see them go out to the field and get on social media or on their computers and lose hours and hours of time communicating with people at home, looking at what's going on at home, rather than being out there doing the hard work daily of learning language, of getting into the community, of building friendships. It's another mistake. Another error that I often see commonly among missionaries is that when it gets hard, they start to think that the hardness of it is unusual, that somehow that suffering is something that ought not to be happening. And so they seek therapy, and then they realize that, because my family's having a hard time, because this is difficult, our default is just to go home where it won't be hard. And I think it's a huge mistake to believe that suffering is somehow foreign to the experience. Really, it's an essential part of it. Paul is joyous to fill up the afflictions in his own body that are lacking in Christ. And his point isn't that Christ hasn't paid a sufficient penalty on the cross. His point is that Christ's body is going to continue suffering on his behalf as we make the gospel known to the ends of the earth. And so seeing suffering as somehow foreign to our experience rather than as essential to it or a part of it or natural to it is another mistake I often see.